My name is Christie Terrell. I'm the CISO at Bishop Fox, and today I have the pleasure of interviewing two fantastic female founders within the cybersecurity community. Now, I've been helping grow my company for over 16 years, so I do understand what it takes to grow and build a company, but I never founded it from scratch. And I'm really fascinated and interested and proud to be able to speak to these women today. So today I have with me Deidre Diamond, who is the founder of CyberSN and Secure Diversity, as well as Juliet Okafor, the founder of RevolutionCyber. And we're going to get each of their perspectives on a few key aspects about their role founding their companies. So my first question for you both, thank you, first of all, for being here. My first question for you both is really what led to your decision to found a company instead of joining an existing company in a senior leadership role? Deidre, would you like to start?
Sure, Christy, thank you so much for doing this. It's such a great social service to get stories out like ours that are so rare. We do represent under 1% of CEOs that have founded their own tech companies that have self-funded is under 1%. And Jules and I both represent that and have been doing it for quite some time. So we're really excited to share. I know with wonderful people in this industry who are thinking about this or who have just want to, know like yourself. So thank you. For me, it was a bit of a scary moment. I came out of college and I got hired by two serial entrepreneurial men who I worked for 21 years and across three different organizations that they owned, where they built and trained and developed and gave me opportunity. And it was wonderful. Rapid7 was the one that brought me to cybersecurity. And they retired, they stopped doing it. They were older than me. I'm not, so in my, early 40s, they were retiring, getting out of quote working. And I started talking to people like, it's not hard to get interviews to go be a head of sales or a CEO at that time. I could do, either. I'd already been a CEO of one of their tech companies. But of course, I came up through sales and people really want both. They want you to be CEO and sales. But anyhow, I went out talking to people and met some folks. And I thought, you know what? I'm having a conversation about being the CEO at a pool at Black Hat at a poolside where people are in the water and in their bikinis and all this weird stuff's going on. And I just remember saying to myself, what the hell am I doing? I just worked 21 years for guys that just let me be me and do my thing. And I didn't have to deal with, and what I'm not going to go build these relationships with these new people and get them on how to behave. I already did that with everybody. That I work with. And so I decided it was time to do my own thing, that I wasn't going to be able to really work for somebody at that moment. And it was scary as heck. And I really didn't feel like I had a choice, that I could go really effectively work for people that didn't have the same values. Those guys were all about hang together, hang separately, take care of your people. Nobody comes to work to fail, build wealth, which they built wealth with me. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. And so like finding that replacement of people that would have that, I was like, this isn't going to happen. So just go do it, Deidre.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, can you briefly share just what each of your organizations do?
Sure. Yes. So CyberSN's 11 years this year. We're everything workforce risk management, which is everything from acquiring and retaining and developing talent to actually managing your cyber capabilities through talent optimization software and platform that we operate. So, 11 years of really helping our industry transform this broken job searching system. It also retain, develop, and optimize. And then Secure Diversity is a not-for-profit that focuses on women in cybersecurity. And we're the co-founders of the Day of Security Conference, which is 8 years running now. And the next one's coming up this fall. So date's coming out soon, everybody.
Yes, we're all looking forward to joining with that and supporting it. Great, Jules. How about your story? Why found a company? Why start from scratch?
I know now, I probably wouldn't have, which is the funniest thing because I jumped right in, and I am actually listening to Deidre so surprised at how similar our stories are because my first experience, my experience prior was with two serial entrepreneurs who had started three companies, who had given me an opportunity to work with them. And literally, they introduced me to wealth and they introduced me to the idea of thinking beyond sort of the transactional sales to sort of how you could use sales to really build. I built ecosystems. And when I've been with them for 5 years, and there just came a time when almost what I had built grew bigger than the company that I was working for. And so I kind of outgrew the space I was in. And a lot of times you'll know you begin to outgrow the space because of the conflict that just doesn't ever get resolved. Where you all seem to be aligned and focused, it started to become very, very toxic for me. And so I did this project, and it was with a major cruise line, and I had taken 8 men to the Bahamas. We sat on the boat, and we had to do an assessment of their ICS systems. I led that, and prior I had been the SVP of sales, and so needing to move from selling a solution to actually delivering on the solution, my company was like, this is not the work we wanted to do. We don't want to do this kind of work. We don't want to align what risk is with how people learn about that risk. And I said, I think that there's a niche there. I want to take that journey. And so I took a sabbatical, thought about what I wanted to do next, and RevolutionCyber was started. I'll admit that when I first opened up the doors, I I started with flush with cash because we had done a lot of great sales at Fortress before I started. But ultimately, my company started because I wanted to create a space that was unique and safe for people like me. Um, I found even at that time, being a senior vice president, being a woman, being in sales, it was so male dominated. And I would rarely ever run into women at my level. I rarely ever ran into women who own companies. And I have always been the kind of person that said, I am the model. I'm going to show people that they can do it by doing it myself. And so if I think about why I started the company, it was because I wanted to create a safe space for people like me.
It's a great answer and a great reason. Can you just briefly share the scope of services for Revolution Cyber?
Sure. So in 2019, we started in the awareness and culture space, building out security awareness programs from end to end for Fortune 500 companies. Today, we work with mid-sized and larger companies, actually partnering with CyberSN, but we actually help organizations to build new capabilities in their organization. And our programs are about 12 to 36-month programs, focused dynamically on how culture and communications impact a security program's development. So a lot of the work we do is around application security. It's in tying the engineering teams and security teams, building bridges between security and executive leadership. And we spend a lot of our time really understanding where the communication breakdowns are across silos in security teams themselves, but also in how they're interacting with the rest of the organization.
That's great. Okay.
Jules, can I say something, Christy? Just because, Jules and I know each other, as she mentioned, our firms are partnering. We started back in the, DEI space together. Yes. That's where we met originally, really fighting that fight and still continue to. Jules, what I didn't know was that, yes, you're right, that you needed a certain culture and wanted a certain culture. I needed and wanted a certain culture. Mine wasn't toxic. I wanted to repeat it. I didn't want, but I knew everything else was toxic, that I was out, all of a sudden I was out talking to people going, what, you're interviewing, we were talking about this job where and what's going on? Or, oh, you've got a problem paying for my apartment. Do you know what I do? Like, why am I even talking to you? Like that stuff started happening like that. And, so it is this cultural of how do you build wealth, of how you treat people, but also like, yeah, I need an apartment. You think I'm going to sit in one place and build your entire, a sales army around the United States, those types of things. So the mindset is a culture. And the mindset, whether it be of making money and how to make money or how to treat people, like we needed that. And isn't that fascinating?
It's fascinating.
That's what brought us. It is so fascinating.
Well, and you both said that for, a variety of reasons, you didn't really have a choice. Like this was the natural next step to, uh, to progress your career, but also like contribute back, get what you want out of a role, a company. And I hear from any founders, right, that they have a mission of some kind, right? And that they also feel like they don't have a choice. Like they feel so led by, I can do this, others aren't or can't or won't, but I
Yep.
can. So that's, that kind of passion I think is necessary. But let's get to some of the mechanics of this. I mean, both of your companies are self-funded. Did you explain how much you would like to about that? But it's really interesting. Did either of you pursue or consider any external funding? Jules, how about we start with you?
Sure. So yes, self-funded. So I left Fortress. I left my last company and it made a lot of money, and I felt like it would be money well spent. But I also at the time took another job where I was working really for my company and then working full time for Habituate, which is where Deidre and I met. And so I took some of the money that I originally gotten for the last commission and put it into building the company, and really decided in 2019 that I was going to take a year. And if it didn't work after a year, I was just going to go and do business. What happened is, I actually met, I'm forgetting her name, but the former CISO at GE Aviation. And I had no bank account yet. I had no registration. I didn't have anything. I had an idea. She agreed. We're happy to pay you to do what you're saying that you can do. I took that first GE Aviation check and went to the bank. That was the first payment that I got for my company. It was then I realized I was onto something. So, but the key is, I think a lot of founders, we're obsessive, we're passionate, but we're also delusional in some ways, because really it doesn't make any sense why even I thought about it that way. But I knew I couldn't fail. I knew I had to succeed. And if the question is, how do you succeed? You just make things happen, right? The challenge I found over and over again was the people willing to fund, they were very focused on getting their money back right away. Except what I was building required time to invest in the market. I had to develop, sort of a pipeline of people who would be interested. And they were just like, here's what we want to get out of it. It was too quick for me. And so I thought to myself, you didn't take all this effort. So probably 2023, I built a platform and said, I'm going to do the traditional way people go. I'm going to build a platform, I'm going to go out for investors. And a number of people were interested in investing. They just weren't the right people in terms of their commitment to the work. And if I'm building a company, Black woman funded, I saw so many women who look like me lose their companies, lose their nonprofits, have the board take over. And so for me, it was like, I was not going to go out and get money until I felt like not only had I built something of value that I could protect, but that I had done the protection of it, and that anybody who gave money didn't want to see an immediate return, because I needed to make sure it could take off. I'm at the point now where we've built enough, developed a market, we have enough customers where I feel like I'm ready for angel investors still, but I'm still being very thoughtful about how I do, because I need us to be attractive to women, attractive to people who are neurodiverse, people who are coming and seeking a place where they can feel safe. Today, I heard from one of my employees, she said, Juliet, I'm so thankful because I've never felt so valued. That's why I started the company. And it's very difficult with institutional investment to keep that culture alive.
Wow. Yeah, that's great. How about same question for you? Did you pursue any external funding, or out of the gate, were you definitely going to self-fund this venture?
Out of the gates, definitely going to self-fund, knowing that, I build sales armies is what I do. And then that led to building armies of all departments over time. But certainly being the sales army leader, I knew that I could hit the ground and make money. And for me, it was about building armies. It was about doing exactly what I did. Number 19 at Rapid7, first VP of sales at Motion Recruitment before that, number 18, and, building 36 offices is very quickly in a 5-year period, and all those things. I really knew I was going to go do that again. And so self-funding was the way I was going to do it. And it was both through our own, revenue generation, or I shouldn't say both, that's how I started. But instantly, as soon as I started the company, having left staffing for 10 years and came back and saw the mess, and we couldn't make money the way we used to make money because you couldn't make matches. Nobody, resumes didn't make sense. Job descriptions don't make sense. Everything's cheap to post a job. And so nobody cares. And so instantly I was like, oh my God, I need to build a taxonomy, and then I need a job building, platform, and then I need a job posting platform and all this shit. And so I just went into tech fast. And so before I knew it, it wasn't a small investment of a few of us getting going. It was tech, and it was, millions of dollars, not hundreds of thousands or what have you, and big payrolls. And so, lucky for me, I was also very successful. Those gentlemen took me on the wealth road, and I had a portfolio that and I watched what they did, where if you have money, you get money cheap.
Yes.
Bottom line. And especially in the last 10 years until recently, money has been really cheap. So there's a way to borrow against your own money, invest in your organization, and avoid, paying taxes because of the investments and things like that. Not avoid paying taxes on profit, but avoid paying taxes when there's losses. And what is an investment other than a loss?
Yes.
And that's for me how I've funded all of CyberSN for the last 11 years. And sometimes we're profitable, and sometimes I'm funding, and sometimes, it's all based on what I want to do. How fast do I want to go? How much tech do I want to build? We're a lot of tech. And so, along the journey, I've dabbled with talking to people. I've never really invested in VC funding. I've never really done that, but partnerships, here and there. And, never felt like it was the right thing, and that people would value what I have the way that I'd want to value it. So I just have always kept going on my own.
Yeah.
I think there's a place and a time, and it's all about timing.
So what I think is interesting that I'm hearing from both of you, some similarities in your journeys, is that you both did have the opportunity to kind of self-fund with kind of a little bit of a head start of some cash from a previous venture and things like that, which not everyone has. You both considered the options of external funding, right? You dabbled, had conversations, thought about what it would mean, and for your own reasons decided, not yet, or not first, or not for me. But also that you both have some background in sales, which I don't always hear as the jump off point to founding. I mean, I think it's so important for what you do. I mean, that's something that I've done in my company as well. So it's the kind of role or skills I would say that, everyone needs to be a salesperson for what they do and what they can offer. So I think it's great that you've had those backgrounds, but I don't always hear about that as like a background for founders. Are usually coming up from an engineering standpoint, really like product focused or end user. Like I was a user of this and I didn't like it, and so I built what I didn't see. So I'm just observing some of those similarities in your background and journeys, which I think is really interesting. What advice would you tell someone else who also wants to kind of do it themselves to found a company, and try to keep it to maybe just a few key points? We have more questions to go. This isn't the end of the conversation, but if someone maybe hasn't even considered it, and this conversation is making them think, oh, maybe that's something I could do. These women have done it. Maybe I can do it too. So what advice would you tell someone?
I'll go ahead. I'll say two things. One is this 0 to 1 concept that I didn't find. So, do one thing really well and own that, and really own that. I did not do that. I was like, I'm an entire cybersecurity market. I'm going to solve all talent matching for all cyber, and I'm going to solve all workforce risk management. And so here I am 11 years later, and it's great to be that, and yet the journey could have been so much easier if I had read that damn book. Which there's one out there, everybody, from 0 to 1. It would have been a lot easier. So there's that. And then this is, probably out in every book, but I didn't follow it, which is, test your hypothesis.
Yeah.
So, I knew that I had solved job matching because from a talent acquisition perspective, we just crush matching. We're 3 to 1 and you filled your role. We have a service where we give you 5 and you fill your role. It's 100% money back guarantee. I mean, for any job in cyber. And so, like having, that actually be the case. And yet that doesn't mean that everybody's going to come make their job descriptions in my job building platform and post their jobs. And I put a lot of money and time into creating a self-service, post your jobs, and you're going to get a lot of value. But I didn't test that. I just assumed everybody hates their matching and they hate their job descriptions. But the reality is there's an ownership problem between HR and the hiring manager, and who's doing what, and posting job laws that people are afraid of, and all these things. So I didn't test that. Now it's coming back full circle. I launched that 5 years ago. It's coming back because now LinkedIn gives you a button to push and you've got 600 people in 5 minutes and it's crushing everybody. And so people are calling again. And luckily it's one of 8 business lines that we have that, it's okay that failed in some ways. And yet all I had to do was test it better. And I could have saved myself a lot of time, money, and heartache. So it's fascinating to look at hindsight, confidence. Read that.
Yeah, that's great advice. Jules, how about you? What would be some of your key advice?
I work with a lot of founders. The first one is the founder is the first salesperson. So you have to, as a founder, master your sales skill. And if you cannot have conversations to convince people to buy your product or to buy your service, I wouldn't recommend you get into it unless you have a ton of money to throw away, because legitimately you're going to bring on a number of really bad salespeople to start who are going to convince you of things. And then you're going to wish that. And really, when it's a new idea or new product, they want the CEO to be the one talking to them. So I want people to feel comfortable in selling yourself, selling your brand, selling your product service. 2, partnerships are key. I have been able to drive the most revenue through my relationships. And so the ones that you build before you start your company are critical, and you build those before you need them. You don't want to build when you're at the point of, I really need this to take off. You want to build with the anticipation of, how do I help people? And then go back when I also need help back. And I think that that's been critical for me, especially when times got down during COVID. I could count on those relationships. And then third, you got to take care of yourself, because being a founder, people think that there's a way to be a founder and you got to do these like hyper masculine, extroverted, like introverts sometimes make the best CEOs as well. There is no one way to be a founder, but what I find, just as a group, we don't take as good care of ourselves. And so I'm in a position now where I'm scheduling vacation, and I am moving to a self-managed business by hiring really good people who I can walk away and go, hey, I need to take some time, but the company doesn't stop because I'm not available. And I think we've got to get to the difference between having a contract job where you're working for your self-employed versus having a business. Those are 2 different things. And what kind of founder do you want to be? So I really am focusing on wellness, making sure mentally you're healthy, and then also thinking, okay, how do I want to show up in the world if I'm going to do this journey? Because it's a marathon, and it doesn't end. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, I've talked to CEOs and heard that CEOs often say that it could be a lonely position to be in, to be a CEO. Does being a founder specifically, I mean, you're your own CEOs, but does being a founder feel lonely sometimes? And if so, how do you find community?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know if it's so much lonely as it is the buck stops here, meaning head of sales, the buck is definitely right there. There's no question your job, everybody's paycheck's on the line for you doing your job correctly, especially if you're talking startups and such. But there was always, for me, somebody else that had to deal with the money. And but I still ran things and acted as CEO and all those things. But once it's one's own cash, wow, that's where the loneliness can set in, is that pressure of the money and the sleepless nights of being the only one. And you know what we didn't point out here, Jules and Christy? The other thing is, not only are uh, we're sole founders. Most people are
Yes.
co-founding. Like the guys
Yes.
I work for, there were two of them that had to bear that
Yes.
pressure. And I was in those financial conversations with them, and the fights and the
Yep.
breakups and all the shit that went down that I had to repair so that we can move forward, and there was somebody else to share in that stress
Yes.
of money. And so, wow, I bet you we're, not even close to 0.1% on that one. And so I think that is the case. And then, as Jules was saying, we both are very grounded in culture. So I have my first head of finance and HR. I have my first head of cyber and product and technology. I have my first IT hire, I have my first of sales hire. The very first person I ever hired is still here at CyberSN. And so while I can feel very separated sometimes on the money stress, those people are with me in bearing the stress of, the change in the climate of the industry or COVID or all those stressors that impacted us. And so I'm super lucky slash that's what I want to live in. I want to live every day working with people that are a part of this with me. We have a stock option plan, and we have since our second year too. So if should we go that route, there's safety for those folks. Or if we don't, that's okay, but at least they have it. So yeah, it's lonely in that way for me.
Right. But you
Think-
found community by creating it within your
Yes.
company to a certain degree.
Yes. I have
I
to.
think that's
Otherwise,
always the difference. I think because I actually am struggling with the question because I no longer feel lonely because the people inside the company, well, yes, the buck stops with me. I'm much more comfortable with that than I've ever been because I'm much more am confident in my decision making. And so I don't fear the failure, which creates loneliness, is you pull back because you're afraid to admit this could all go wrong and how embarrassing it would all be. That used to be my issue, so I'd say nothing. Now my clients also they're like, let us know, how can we help you? How can we support you? We've got this going on, we've got that going on. And so we also attract clients that want to see us succeed. And that's also how we keep growing. And so I don't feel lonely as much as I used to. And maybe that's the turnaround for the company. But I just feel like, I want to make sure that no one else feels lonely. So I'm always putting myself out there to make other people feel lonely. So I can't feel lonely because I'm helping others avoid that, especially inside my company and also in my ecosystems.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, look, I found both of you through, outreach within our community. And
Yes.
some of the things you were saying earlier about building authentic relationships and authentic partnerships, this recording came out of some authentic discussions that we each had, and that's how this idea came about. And I agree that it's so important to just build those naturally, organically, for the right reasons, and then opportunities breed because of that. And then similarly to what you're saying about within your own organizations, you're having that same type of culture building mindset. And so I love to hear that you're not saying you feel lonely, right? I mean, that was a hypothesis I had in asking it, and you're both saying not really, and that's fantastic to hear that that's your answer.
Yeah,
Definitely.
it is fantastic to hear. I think I wouldn't, and I know Jules, you did the same thing. I wouldn't be doing this if that was the case. The only reason to do this is the joy of teamwork, the joy of others excelling. You know, while I've had wealth, I want my people to experience that too.
Yes,
And because wealth is safety.
it really is.
It really is. And what we do with our money, you know, is for me, it's doing good with it, creating jobs. Like I love that. I love that I'm creating jobs, places people like to work, where they get
Yes.
a lot of value. And there's just, I mean, that just, I'm a junkie for that. So much so that, like I said, I've lost a lot of money at certain
Yes.
times, you know, not being smart about what I'm doing, just like we can do whatever we want, you know? So yeah, I just can't imagine. And I do think it's the difference between a lot of companies that have been founded because of a great tech idea versus I want to work with great people and I want to have control over who I work with. What a
Yes.
difference. It's so
Completely different.
interesting. Yeah, wow. It's like even for me having this conversation, pulling that out, it's like, holy moly, you know?
Well, that was one of my questions that we can continue talking about. Maybe Jules, if you have anything to add about, you know, about that joy and fulfillment as a founder. Like, what do you get being in the role you're in now as a founder? What kind of joy or fulfillment do you get out of this opportunity that you didn't have when you were part of an employee in an organization?
So just recently I had one of my closest employees. He's been with us the longest now. At the end of last year, he had a stroke. And one thing is for Revolution Cyber, we take off paid the last 2 weeks of the year. We give all of 4th of July off, and then that week, and then we also give mental health days in addition to after every major project, we have the company take some time off, and we're doing a retreat for the first time this year. But he had a stroke, and his biggest worry was, Jules, I'm so sorry. I can't perform. And the doctor said, and he kept calling me and saying, look, I want to work. And I just said, you have done enough for us that your paychecks will come whether you show up or not. And let me tell you also that when you do feel like you're ready, you will not jump back into it. You will watch, because just having you around is value. Just the fact that because he was crying because in other places, you're worried about protecting your job and you're worried about getting healthy and like, I literally, and he was up for bonuses, like your bonus they will also come. Nothing is impacted because you as a person have value. You don't
Mhm.
have to be overworking and productive. We need to show by action that you recover and you're welcome back so that other people who report into you, they also see you need to take time and you're able to come back. So the joy and fulfillment I have is showing people that there's another way to be successful. You don't have to burn out and you don't have to be toxic and you don't have to hate your coworkers, and we could still get a lot done. And so I would build that company any day of the year. I would do this over and over and over again. Actually, I hope to.
Yeah, wow. So I'm really hearing from you both that being
Yeah.
able to take care of your team
Yes.
in all ways, both financially and financial security, but as well kind of emotionally to be there for them, to have them feel their value and know that they're more than just what they could do for you tomorrow or what they did for you, a minute ago. And that's great to hear.
Yeah.
So, on a little bit of a lighter note, if I wasn't on this call, if you two were just chatting and catching up, what would you be talking about with each other? What would you be laughing about or venting about? Just with you have a long relationship already, pre-founders, but specifically about what your companies are doing now or the challenges you're facing. Like, what would you be sharing about?
Do we share already, Deidre?
Yeah, share everything. I think that most of our focus is on how 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 much our clients are, suffering and how we can do more to help them, learning about things she's seeing, things I'm seeing. Because truly the work that we do is solving problems for organizations around people and processes and giving them more hands on the wheel of really moving security postures to maturity. And so to do that work, we see the pain, we see the burnout, the not having, time to self-care. And so I think we bond a lot on that and talk through like how we can jointly do more and more, like different things that we see lately. That seems to be what we've been doing, Jules. And
Yep.
then we're always, and we're recording later today, on, this, the sort of the attack on DEI and what does it mean to us and the community, because we're also very known to be thought leaders in the DEI space. And so we tend to talk a lot about how to support the generations underneath us
Yeah.
in navigating these waters and what can we do, and the next day of security conference or whatever things that we can do to make a difference. I think that's how I feel about it, Jules, lately, because we've been 10 years now knowing each other.
I mean, I think for us, it's always about what's next. I think, especially when you're self-funded and you're solo founded, you're always making sure you're staying on top of things. So we're always kind of checking in on like, what are you hearing? What am I hearing? Who should we be talking to? Who are some people that you know that I should talk to? Who are some people I know that you should talk to? And I think always we really do want to impact change. I think we talk about how do we make change happen, and who, and where are the places we're seeing it, and how do we keep replicating it? And I think that's really what we're really fixated on. And what I love about Deidre and I is because we're both salespeople, we know the money is the undercurrent of every conversation. We want to, because everything takes money, but we don't have to talk about that. It's the idea or the mission first, and then we'll figure out how to make the numbers work. Because we're both former VPs of sales, we don't have to do that, which I really love.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I love solving problems. So I think there's nobody that should be a founder unless you want to solve problems. And I'm looking for problems. I want the problems. What problems
Yep.
do you have? And it feels good to help our clients as much as it feels good to help our own people. To me, I get joy from both.
Yes.
And to really see a client get out of, burnout, get their teams out of burnout, to communicate to the business where they get the support they need. Wow, like that.
Amazing.
I'm a junkie for that stuff,
Yes.
internally and externally. Thank goodness, because otherwise, sales is not sales. And
Yeah.
it's the art of persuasion to do good is the definition of sales to me.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it sounds to me like both of you don't have any regrets about your, decision to found a company. Do you think it's one of the best decisions you've ever made, or just one of many great decisions that you've made over the course of your career?
I guess if I were to be, I wake up every day and I'm thankful that I did this. Would I've done it a little differently? Yes, but I don't regret it at all. It was a great decision I've made.
Yeah. I don't regret it. I've had a lot of tough years. And I would definitely do things a bit differently without a doubt. And yet no regrets. I'm excited about the future. And yet, yeah, a lot of things I would have done differently.
That's learning, right? I mean, that's what everyone says, failure is what you learn the most from. And I think, and I felt this in my own career, and I talk to women about this all the time, is I, I wish I had failed more. I
Yeah.
wish I had set myself up to be bolder and braver and put myself in positions where maybe I would have failed more, because I know that's where
Yes.
learning comes from. So the challenges you've described are some of the things that have been, not a mistake, but things you would have done differently. I mean, that's okay, right? That's how
Yeah.
you've learned. And I hope that, this recording, this session, this conversation, I hope it can be something that other founders and other women can also learn from all of, your experiences that you've shared. So I think on that note, I think we can wrap this one up. And I just want to say thank you both for your time and your insight and your honesty in this conversation. And I look forward to collaborating with both of you in the future.
Thank you so
Good.
much.
Thank you so much for putting this together, Christy. It was
No
awesome.
problem. Thank you.
Yes, to anybody listening, Jules and I are both happy to take calls and help you out. Any needs you have.
Sure.
All right. Have a good day, everybody.
Right, bye.